King in fine voice there with She Wears My Ring. You're listening to the morning show from Cavan FM. It's Jonathan here through till noon, and I'm joined now by Nikki Russell, who's the registered manager of Blossom Home Care. Good morning to you, Nikki.
Morning, Jonathan. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much for coming in. Now, we're going to go on to talk about some of the services that you can offer and some of the advice and the support that you give to people. But your raison d'etre, you were telling me earlier, is about helping people who've got a diagnosis which might mean others would say, well, they really need to be in a care home, to stay in their own home as long as possible. So let's talk a bit first, before we get into the details, about what Blossom Home Care is and how it works.
Okay, so Blossom Home Care, we work in a community. Our aim is to keep people at home. 99% of people want to stay at home. They want to be supported at home. But it is very difficult if you have a diagnosis of dementia. The reason is it's quite often families, it's their first ever experience of dementia is when a family member is diagnosed. We feel that there isn't enough support for people in the community. You can research dementia online. You can find out how many different types of dementia there are. You can say this is what's going to happen, what medication, all that kind of thing. But what there's very little information about is actually how to live and support somebody through their journey through dementia. It doesn't need to be as difficult or as challenging as we've seen. We've done a lot of work together over the last couple of years, myself and my team, to look at how we support people with dementia, but it's wider than that. It's educating the families. There's so many emotions that come. It's one of the worst things that you can hear, along with, you know, oh, you've got cancer, you've got dementia. It's like straight away, you know. And then it's fumbling around for information. A GP can give you medication and everything. A care company can send in a carer to do the personal care and all the challenges that they face on that level. But there's other challenges around behaviour. And we very rarely see two cases exactly the same, because there's hundreds and hundreds of different types of dementia. It affects the brain in different ways. What we try to do is we train our carers right from as soon as they start with us. We put on a workshop, and we also extend this support to families also. The workshop isn't around learning what dementia is and what it does to the brain. The workshop is around the person is behaving in a certain way. What are they going through? What are they seeing? How do they see the world? So we turn it on them. We take away their sight, we take away their hearing, we take away their ability to speak, and we take away their movement one by one, and then put them in different scenarios so they know how it feels. But the thing is, with the training, they can get their sight back, they can get their hearing back, they can take all that, and then, oh, thank goodness for that. It's a very emotional experience. But with families also, we like to do that with them as well. When you're in that position, when you've had all that taken away, and we do it bit by bit. So we put earphones on and we take away the sight with goggles, because one of the first things to go is your peripheral vision when you have dementia. So we do that bit by bit, and then after each section we talk about, how did that feel? How did that feel? And it's quite amusing, to be honest. It breaks the ice, you know, amongst the team and amongst the families. It's like, oh yeah. But then it's the realisation that that is somebody's life every single day. And when we've taken away all of that from them and we start moving them into another room, copying going to the bathroom, for instance, or we sit them down and we start taking their shoes off, they can't really hear you, so they don't know what you're doing. So after we've done all that, we really analyse how we feel. How did that feel? How scary was that? But then also, what could happen to have made that better? So, for instance, if first of all, when we take away the sight, and they can just barely see little black dots in front of them, but then somebody will come up soundlessly from behind and just tap them on the shoulder or start brushing their hair. And 99% of the time they're jumping out of their chair. But if somebody came up to you at the front, held your hand, sat down, went to eye level with you, really took the time to explain what they were doing, it's much better. You know, oh, I know what's happening now and why it's happening. But with so many people come in and oh, just brush your hair needs brushing, no communication, just because somebody can't communicate, there's other ways to look at what they're doing. You can always see when somebody's frightened or scared. But there are things you can do.
There's clearly so much to know about what dementia really is, because I think, like a lot of people, I think it's just short-term memory loss. But you've described a whole host of other things going on which are impacting on somebody's life even more directly than the memory loss in many ways.
Yeah, well, so one of the first things to go is your short-term memory. That's how people kind of think, oh, you know, what's happening here? But your long-term memory is stored in a different part of the brain. So you'll have somebody who has really clear, crisp memories of things that happened 50, 60, 70 years ago. Boyfriends, girlfriends that they had, but they can't remember their wife. They can't remember their children. So a family member will come in, for instance, and say, oh, hello mum, how are you, and all this sort of thing, and they won't really recognise who they are, which is really hurtful for the families. But a common mistake people will then do, because somebody is thinking they're much younger than they are, for instance, because they're thinking they're back then, they might ask for their mum, where's my mum? You know, oh, have you seen dad this morning? And we've heard it so many times. People say, oh, they died years ago. And it's such a flippant comment, but it's absolutely devastating for somebody with dementia, because it's the first time they've heard of it. So if somebody's doing that, you can kind of gauge where they are in their head. So if somebody's thinking that they've seen their mum this morning, they clearly think they're a certain age. So you could have a conversation with them. No, I haven't seen her this morning. That's not a lie. You know, you haven't seen them this morning. Get them talking about their brothers and sisters. So say, oh yeah, how's your brother Frank, for instance, if they start talking about him. Oh, how old is Frank now? And then they'll say, oh, he's 16, 17. Whereas in reality, he could be 70, 80, you know, but it kind of gets you in where they are, you know, in their head. So you can imagine when they look in a mirror, for instance, thinking they're much younger than they are, how devastating it is to look in the mirror and think, God, who's this person? I think there was a big thing a few years ago about taking mirrors out of lifts, because it's quite devastating for somebody. You can speak to somebody, for instance, I had a lady we were supporting, and she was bedbound. She hadn't looked in a mirror for years, and she used to look at me and say, oh, my hair's the same colour as yours. But she wasn't. She was really grey. I mean, if you took the dye off my hair, I am really grey, but she thought she was blonde, you know. So it's being aware of all these other, you know, the throwaway comments that families make. Pick your battles, you know. Yeah. How important is it, this conversation, you know? As soon as you get a diagnosis, or if you're worried about somebody may have dementia, you can call us straight away. We're quite happy to come and give you a one-to-one visit with your family, or you can come into our office if you'd like a more private chat. We can give you all the advice that we have. We have a highly experienced team on hand who are keen to support people living with dementia. We offer, in terms of services, we offer all different types of services. So we can offer the training around working with dementia, the practical workshops. We can offer them that service to carers, care companies, also members of the public who would like that as a family, that support. In terms of offering people support in their own home, there's several options there as well. So we can do, if you need help with the personal care side of things, medication, food preparation, that type of things, we can send carers in each day to support. We do a minimum of a 50-minute call. That means that there is enough time then. The last thing we want to do is rush through a call. Somebody needs time. We keep consistency of carers also, so that they build up that relationship, they get to know who they're looking after.
So you're working with the families, but you also are providing direct hands-on care to the person who's directly affected.
Yes, yeah. Obviously everybody needs different levels of support, so we would come out and do an initial assessment. Either our care manager Billy Joe, or our senior Sally, or myself would come out and do an assessment, which is quite an in-depth getting to know you type conversation. We then put together a care plan, which involves the person we're supporting, how they like things to be done, what they need to be done, and what their level of ability is. So we're not there to do everything for somebody. It's empowering them to live their best life, and with that comes independence.
Now, can I just push you on now to say, if somebody hearing this is thinking, well, I could do with that kind of support, or at least I'd like to find out more about it, how do they get in touch with you?
There's lots of ways to get a hold of us. So if you go to our website, Blossom Home Care Canterbury, that's got all of our contact details on it. By phone, our number it's a Canterbury number, 01227 851 151, or our Facebook page also has all our contact details on. There's email addresses on there as well. You can contact us anyway.
That's lovely. Look, I've rushed you through that last bit, Nikki, and I'm sure we could devote hours and hours to talking about this very important subject. But thank you very much for coming in, and certainly educating me a lot about what's involved, and hopefully people listening too. And thank you for providing all those details, and thank you for all the great work you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much for having us.
That is Nikki Russell from Blossom Home Care, and this is Cabin FM.